Hi, I'm Larry and welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to do another of my series of techniques and tips, and this time it's for everybody because we're going to be talking about this little brush. It's called a liner brush. Sometimes it's called a script liner brush, a rigger brush, and if you followed Bob Ross, he called it his Twiggy brush. But it's a very versatile little brush, but it is a challenging brush. I know a lot of people have problems with it, so I hope today I can show you some ways to make this little brush your favorite brush. It's my favorite brush because it can do so many fun little things. So if you're an oil painter, the only thing that's going to be different is that you will thin with your oils or whatever thinner you use. But basically, the techniques are the same for acrylics, watercolor, and oil. Or gouache if you're using gouache. So I'll be right back. Thank you. Okay, now that we're down on my palette, first I'm going to show you my palette. I always set my palette up the same way every time. I start with my light color and then work to my darker color. So I have, this is gesso rather than titanium white. I use gesso. That's cad yellow light, cadmium orange, cad red, naphthol red, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, burnt umber. That's called leaf green or phthalo yellow green, sap green, hooker's green, and ultramarine blue. And I always put them out in the same place every time so I don't have to look for it. They're sitting on wet paper towels right here. That keeps the moisture and the atmosphere around the paints moist so that they don't dry out. But especially in the summertime, what you want to do is every so often just come by, and this has got a real, I don't know if you can see it, but it's got a very fine mist, and just mist them every so often. Or if you're in a classroom and you happen to be sitting under a air conditioning duct or something, you want to make sure that you come in and every so often mist your paints, and they'll stay good for weeks on end if you take care of them. Also, what I have in here, this is just a cheap cutting mat that I got at like a dollar store. I've got a whole bunch of them for, about $3, but this one fit the palette here, and I just cut the ends off. So I can come back in. I've even cleaned up my palette for you guys, but you can come back in with, this is just a paint scraper, and just scrape it off, and it's all clean again. So that's my palette. So when I talk about my palette, you have now seen it at its best. Usually it's a lot messier than this. So first thing, and the reason we're down here on my palette to begin with, is that the most important part about using a liner brush, and this is sometimes called a rigger or a script liner. They used it when they were doing rigging on ships, so they wouldn't have to reload. These long bristles here, and let's see, do I have a... Oh, I have the brush, but it hides. There we go. Okay, this is a short round brush, and this is for really tiny detail. But a regular round brush is maybe just a little bit longer than this. And while they're good for a lot of things, they don't hold a lot of paint. This will hold a lot of paint if you load it right. So I'm going to take a color. I think I'll just take this is my cadmium red light. And right now the color doesn't matter, not for demonstration purposes. And even though it is a little bit on the wet side because it's on a wet paper towel and I just sprayed it, it needs to be a lot wetter. This will be one of the few times you'll hear me say use water. So I'm just going off camera and picking up water on my brush and mixing it into my paint. What you want is like a ink consistency to your paint. So that's about if it kind of starts to roll down the palette slowly, that's about where you want it. And then you want to really roll your brush into the paint. Just rub it in there. You want to get all the way up to that metal ferrule, and then you twist it in your fingers and pull up. It's hard to talk and do this at the same time. So I'm rolling and pulling, and you can get a fairly decent point to it. Okay, so there's the point on my brush. And when I come back, I'll show you how to use this little brush. But practice this. If the paint is too stiff, you won't be able to load it well and get it full of paint. If it's too wet, when you put it on the canvas, it's going to be too dark when it dries, and you have to do it over again. So it's one of those just right situations. So you want it to be like India ink. It's a little bit, it's not quite water, but it's a little bit thick. So I'll be right back, and we'll be up on the canvas. Okay, now I'm back. I've got my brush loaded. The next thing you have to, I also want to mention one thing. This is a watercolor brush, all right? Oil and acrylic brushes, they have the long handles. So you see that this is an acrylic or oil brush. This is a watercolor brush, and this is where you will find the angle brushes, the liner brushes, and I use them in all medium. I have not seen a specifically designed liner brush for oil or acrylic. So these short handles are fine. When you hold this, you want to hold it back. You're going to get your whole arm in there, and your middle finger, it's going to rest on your middle finger, and that kind of flicks it up when you need it to. So it's kind of a whole arm workout when you do this. Now the beauty of this thing is that you can draw a line. I'll start down here and just go all the way up. Kind of hold it down. All right, and I still have plenty of here I'm going to get, and see my fingers kind of flicking it up at the same time. This makes great grass. But I haven't reloaded. This is from where I did that line across. And you can just keep on going. This makes wonderful grass. A lot of times what I will do is that I will take a bristle brush, and I'll just use a different color. And I can dry brush kind of the base for grass. And that kind of gives that ragged edge, because I'm same thing. I'm using my middle finger to kind of flick that up and create an uneven edge. But once you do that, then you can come back in with the liner brush and make these taller weeds. Now you'll find that one direction goes easier than the other. But practice this. Don't think, okay, I saw it, now I'm going to use it in my painting. No. This is the little brush that's probably the most challenging. And you need to practice this. If you're unsure, if you've not used this, you need to practice. Reload. And the harder you push, the thicker the line. So I'm going to stop now. I'm going to wipe that off so that I have some room to work and show you some more things to do with this little liner brush. I'll be right back. All right, this time what I want to do is I want to show you how to use this little brush to make something other than grasses. This makes wonderful trees, branches, twigs, distant trees. Again, you'll hear me say it often, you need to practice this. If you are unfamiliar with this brush or you are having problems with this brush, take your time. Get out an old canvas, paint it out, and practice this. Right now all I've got is, this is just some burnt umber that I've got on my brush. It's filled all the way up to the metal ferrule. I'm holding it down. I've got it held back, and these 3 fingers kind of control it, but I will be using kind of my whole arm. Now if you press down on this, the bristles get wider, and as you pull up and you're pulling away from the canvas, and I'm kind of rolling it also into my, in my fingers, you go from something that's thick and heavy down to a thinner line. So you just want to come up and just keep lifting and coming right up until it just disappears into nothing. With trees like this, if this is a tree, you follow up the trunk or the branch, and then you branch off. And don't worry if you've got a little bit of a shake, because trees, if you look at them, wherever they start a new twig or maybe things have broken off, they've got little bumps and twists in them. So you follow up. You don't have to always go back to the same spot. And then you just lift off. Now it's better to do it this way, to come in and start within, because that's a little bit fatter. So if you have more pressure, it's okay. It just makes it just a little bit fatter, rather than trying to come in from here. Maybe you hit it too hard, and then it gets skinny and you miss it. Or if you try to come in and do it this way, and you end up with these ticks that are kind of overlapping. So start in some place in the branch, follow it up, and then branch out. I always tell my students to go out and look at things. Also notice I'm holding this down, and I haven't reloaded yet. But you will notice that branches, they overlap, they change direction. I do need to reload now. So remember that the ink, it's a very inky consistency. And you kind of roll it around and then spin it in your fingers as you pull up to form your point. Going to follow this up and come down. Follow that one up. But the more branches you can get in there, actually the better it will look. You can't have some little like broken branches. I'm not saying that you can't have just some little twigs that maybe broke, or they're just getting started, or they've been sawed off. But you don't want to have a whole tree full of those. I've seen a lot of trees that people they come up like this, and then they just kind of like do this, and they end up with something that looks like a comb that's seen better days. So keep that in mind. Look at trees, see how they grow. Different trees grow in different ways. You know, you may have trees that come up and branch off close to the bottom, and that their branches, even when they branch off, they branch up. Again, follow the branch for a while and then branch off. Missed that one. But get enough branches in there to congest an area. And then you can, you know, use this for reeds or long grasses. Come up. You can, you know, make your fence posts with this, and then come in and do your wire. This little brush holds a lot of paint. So get familiar with this little brush. Take your time. Practice this. And, you know, make it be your friend. I love this little brush because of the things that it will do. But the only way you're going to get better at it is if you take the time, like I'm doing right now, and practicing. I've been practicing for 35 years now, and sometimes I still don't get it right, but I'm going to continue to practice. So that's it. I hope that you've learned something today. Remember to stay safe, call your friends, your family, check in on your neighbors occasionally, and most of all, keep painting, and I hope to see you again in class real soon. Thank you for watching.